congratulations on the film. This is quite this was a bigger movie than I was expecting. That's no disrespect meant at all, but when I was sitting watching it, it felt such a huge movie. But I can imagine, the movie didn't quite have the same budget as, say, Star Wars or Blade Runner, which is a lot of the visual effects guys that have worked on this one. So how is it making this? Because I imagine you guys, lots of green screens, all that kind of stuff. It must have been a fun experience.
Yeah, well, actually, not a lot of green screens. I would have done more in my TV show with green screens. I mean, sure, when we were doing some of the flight stuff, that was green screen, but really, like, he being Luke Spark, who's our incredible director and sort of visionary for this piece. Like, I couldn't agree with you more, man. There's something about when look, I saw his first film, which I unfortunately couldn't be a part of, and had sort of wanted to be, but because of work commitments, I couldn't. And he did that on shoestring, and I saw what he did with that and made it look incredible, And this guy really knows how to make every penny go the distance, There's something like I know what you're saying. When you say I wasn't expecting anything quite with such grandeur, like I'm with you. I didn't expect half of what I saw, and just the fact that he went in and made it feel like this world is incredible. And like we committed to that too on set. I think that the actors kind of collectively saw what he was capable of with the first one. We all thought, okay, well, there needs to be a certain size to this and a certain operatic frequency, because if we don't maintain that, then we're going to sort of fall shy of this of the spectacle that he can so easily, well, maybe not easily, but he can so beautifully create.
Yeah, 100%. And there's quite a craftsmanship, like you say. There's a lot of movies like this now that people are making on smaller budgets, but still have the impact of these big movies. I mean, did you when you were shooting this, did you feel that was the case, that, as I say, you talking about your director there, that he was kind of thinking out the box, had to think out the box a little bit, given that the budget was a little bit shorter?
He's a new generation of director. These new young guys and girls are, you mentioned sort of thinking outside of the box. I mean, they're there's something beautiful about this, because it's a sort of the democratization of filmmaking, in every sense. Now, like, this was sort of the last frontier that, say, studios, held a monopoly over. When studios sort of started to crumble at the beginning of the 2000s, and then they started reducing everything, and then their independent arms dried up, and then they became smaller and smaller and smaller. And now, now ultimately you have studios making 3 or 4 films a year, whereas they used to make a couple hundred, and they, and it's all about bankability, right? It's all about like we need to make this thing that we can merchandise, that can be the Avengers, that could be this or that. And in that period of time where technology was, you couldn't have a Luke Spark. You couldn't have someone, create a world like this. But now that you can, it's very exciting, because there's no limitation. I think it's really beautiful. I mean, the fact that, like, I went and shot, a couple little movies in South America. One I wrote and directed, and like this thing here is better than the camera, which was the sort of the state-of-the-art prosumer camera that I used to shoot a little movie in Panama in 2006, 2007. I mean, it's 10 times better. My phone is, if anything, I'm almost more surprised there aren't more Luke Sparks. I say that, and then in the same breath, I realize, no, man, that guy has grit. Like, he has no quit in him, like nobody I've ever met, But because of the scale of this, But I am still surprised that there are not more. There isn't just a legion of young filmmakers out there making more stuff that is kind of blowing our mind. Maybe there is, and I'm just an ignoramus,
Yeah, for sure. Did you get to fulfill a childhood dream to be a wing commander in this one? Was this the one where you, as a kid, you always wanted to be something like this, and you got to do it in this one?
I always want to do fun, complex, slightly, for for lack of a better moniker, essentially the bad guy of the piece. But he's not really. I love taking those guys and trying to make them as human as I possibly can, because, and it's pretty difficult to disagree with his logic, Hayes, as you're watching it. I mean, I know he's sort of maniacal. I don't want to spoil anything, but he definitely has some twists and turns. But I don't disagree with anything that he did.
That's what most bad guys think, don't they? Most bad guys.
Yeah, well, very little.
And is right, according to them.
Yeah. Well, and what is it? The victor writes the history, and it's kind of like what is a bad guy? What does that even mean anymore? But yeah, certainly, I'll be frank with you, man. I have very little military knowledge, and so I didn't even know what a wing commander was. Didn't even know. I'd never heard that. So no. The very circuitous route to answering your question is I don't even know what that rank was, but
you do now. That's the main thing.
Yeah. I mean,
sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, I will say that the character was designed for someone who was about 20 years my senior, I believe, or 20 or 30 years older than me, and so I felt intimidated in that regard. I think he'd originally envisioned him as someone older and more gruff, and perhaps with a good deal more gravitas. But for whatever reason, he got it in his head that he wanted me for this. So, I feel really honored.
Yeah. And you got a fantastic ensemble as well. Familiar faces with Ken Jeong, obviously Jason Isaacs in there as well. It seemed like you guys, it must have been quite a close knit thing, given that there's it's quite a big ensemble.
Yeah, but if I didn't have scenes with people, I didn't get to Ken filmed this stuff long before I did, and because this movie took some doing. COVID sideswiped us and destroyed, and we also, there was some other issues. As I said, it was an odyssey for Luke to bring this to the screen, and so there were delays, man, several. I filmed some, there were some actors who filmed some stuff and then filmed the rest of it a year and change later. This was a real war. I mean, the war you're almost seeing in the film is not even a metaphoric, but almost the literal war of Luke's spark to bring his child into the world.
Yeah, 100%. Before I go, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about all the Spider-Man nonsense. What have you had any reaction to the fact that your dad's come back, Tobey Maguire, all these guys are kind of coming back? Did you get a phone call to maybe?
I don't know
if these things are even true.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't. So just so you know, I don't watch superhero movies. I don't even know what you're talking about.
Okay, this is interesting. But then again, a lot of people who have spoken about these things have said similar things. I.e., Andrew Garfield, for example. I don't know what you're talking about.
And I like Andrew. Look. So if they're reinvigorating stuff, that good for them. Those movies are they're wonderful sort of entertainment for people. I don't think they provide much more than something kind of it does it put it this way. If I'm going to have a night where I entertain myself with something on the TV, I'm going to be watching Michael Haneke or or Gaspar Noé, and that makes me sound pretentious, so be it. But I kind of like being on. That said, though, now and again I'll see something that really, really strikes me. That's something commercial, because I can't watch too much of the superhero stuff. But I liked what was the one that Ryan Reynolds did? He kind of spoofed them all.
Oh, Deadpool.
Yeah, it was beautiful. It was a beautiful spoof of the whole genre. And and John Krasinski's The Quiet Place, which isn't a superhero movie, but ostensibly kind of a commercial sell, that premise. And I thought that was a beautiful allegorical tale of family, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, to fill you in the new Spider-Man that's coming out, reportedly, all the old Spider-Men are coming back, including Kirsten Dunst and Tobey Maguire, to fill you in, and maybe Willem Dafoe and maybe Alfred Molina and all these madness. So
I wish them so well.
Just quickly, how was as a young actor, because obviously it was, you know, it's almost 20 years ago, Spider-Man. What was it like working for Sam Raimi? I'm always curious that people have worked with him, because so many people have so many amazing kind of stories about him as a person.
You know, he's, you know, my memory of him is that he was just kind of like this cool nerd. You know,
that's what a lot of people say about him.
like a very cool nerd. You know, like that he's incredibly passionate about this. Well, he's incredibly funny. He's a very, very funny man. Very specific. I remember his direction was incredibly specific, and like he just really, if he cast you, then he really, really believed in you. You know, that he was excited to be there with you. You know, I do remember him wrestling with the powers of the studio a lot. Like there was a lot of pressure on him, which of course there was. This was back in those days a very expensive film. It was a $250 million film then, I think. You know, and I think it's the best Spider-Man movie that because I think I've seen. Well, I haven't seen any of the new ones, so I can't compare. You know what? That's not true. I watched one of the end. I love Andrew Garfield. I think he's really talented. I watched one of the new ones and didn't think much of it. I think I haven't seen. I think this other boy who's Spider-Man is a very good actor too. Is it Tom Holland?
Yeah.
Is that the name of the new? Yeah. He's just a really good actor. You know? So they choose great actors for their Peter Parkers. But you know, those things are. I put it this way, my metric for whether or not I like the movie is usually like how much I can remember, and I can't remember it.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I will agree that it is
how the brain kind of takes it down. Yeah. Like, you know, just goes, nah, I'm sticking around. Hey, come on in. Meanwhile, you know, that said, you know, I'm the biggest champion of guys like Luke. Sorry, that's my puppy. Because Luke is I think that's where you're going to see some of the most interesting stuff in sci-fi, you know? Like it's going to be in an Ex Machina, or it's going to be in the Black Mirrors. It's going to be it's more about the concept than it is about the splendor, you know? Hey. Sorry, I think sort of Luke's headed.
Listen, thank you so much for your time. Absolute pleasure talking to you. I hope the movie goes fantastically well, and good luck with it all.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey You Guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey